back. First Man 2 now, live on Indiegogo. It's that time for another book review flip through with your hostess with the mostest, Andy Smith. Welcome. I'm a 30-year veteran of the comic book industry, and I'm here to show you another drawing book in my collection. This one is Bryan Hitch's Ultimate Comic Studio, forward by none other than Joss Whedon. Bryan Hitch has been in the comic book field since, I believe, the late 80s. He broke in when he was around 16 or 17 at Marvel UK. That's where Bryan is from. And soon went on to have a career at Marvel, DC, Wildstorm, and is just still working. He started off, his art really looked like he was channeling Alan Davis. And sometime in the early 2000s, when he was working on Stormwatch and Authority, he started making this transition over, and now his work is of its own. You don't see as much Alan Davis anymore. You definitely see some Kevin Nolan influence. It's more realistic. Bryan brought that into the mainstream with the more cinematography type look and storytelling and whatnot. And he put out a book with impact a few years ago called Bryan Hitch's Ultimate Comic Studio. Let's take a look through it, shall we? Even if you're just a fan of Bryan Hitch and that's it, and don't even care that much about wanting to draw comics, this is a great book. It really takes you into his mind. Has a nice gatefold cover right there. These are characters that Bryan's created, I believe, specifically for this book. He did get the rights, or they got the rights from Marvel to use some images. So let's take a look. This book came out back in, let's see, scanning through the indicia, 2010, so 11 years ago. So we've got a forward, introduction, storytelling, composition, drawing, inking and color, the business end, the cover, index. Here are some pencil sketches he did of Josh. This actually really has a Neil Adams feel to it. Bob Peak as well, who is a famous illustrator, but these really have a Neil Bob Peak feel to it. A lot of what Bryan does when it comes to specifically backgrounds and such, and faces and whatnot, you definitely can tell he uses photo reference, which there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, right here, this is an illustration, but I mean, this shot right here is right from a poster, I think. You know, he's got these likenesses down and stuff. Nice shot of his studio. I assume it probably still looks something like that, but you never know. It's been 10 years. But he describes his workspace. Got to have a good workspace. Delves into storytelling. This isn't necessarily how to draw a book, more of just showing you his process. So you're not going to get stuff on how to draw the figure a lot, not in depth like other books. Talks about breaking down panels and panel composition, visualization. So you've got the script here, and then some sketches that he'll start doing on the side of the script and whatnot. Initial thoughts and ideas. He goes into sequential action. Bryan really was the one that brought in you could almost say the movie screen dimensions to the panels for a more cinematic look. That's the word I was looking for earlier, cinematic. Of course, he talks about rhythm of storytelling as well. And then he definitely has trademarks to his work, things that he's known for. His establishing shots, of course, these big panoramic spreads, you know, the widescreen action. I haven't read this book in a long time. I should go back and reread this. Once again, more about storytelling and such. This is when he was working on Fantastic Four. Here he's going to talk about composition. And the nice thing about this book is, like I said, if you're a fan of Bryan Hitch, you will get a wealth of artwork from this book where Bryan just shows, a lot of his work, which, goes into process. This is obviously heavily referenced from something. I would assume he probably found a photo, maybe manipulated it a little bit and traced it off. This is cool, showing his roughs that he creates and how he goes about doing that before he gets to the final. Once again, there's nothing wrong with using reference. There's nothing wrong with tracing photos for backgrounds and things like that. First and foremost, you should be able to draw out of your head and create a lot of this stuff just by looking at photo reference. And then when you add on real photo reference, it just enhances it, as in tracing it off and stuff. I mean, this is out of Bryan's head. He might be looking at some reference, but this isn't traced off of anything. Love the way Bryan does his lighting here. Talking about camera placement, very key. It's a rough for Fantastic Four, I believe. Just talking about finding focus in your panels. I don't think I have his Fantastic Four run. I might have to go back and get his Fantastic Four stuff. It really is pretty freaking cool. I don't know who this dude is. Black Wolf. Graphic blacks. He's talking about, putting, spotting blacks and stuff into your scenes. And this is really cool. This looks like a photograph, but it's not. It might not show that well in video, but you can see the ink in here. Was this taken from a photo? Most likely. But once again, that's what reference is. There's nothing wrong with using reference. Here are reference photos. Here's a reference photo, and this is actually from a book. So, I mean, with the great coloring and stuff, this almost looks like a photograph. Reference photos, drawing he did. Let's see. Here we have reference photos right here. And then he's incorporating some of the destruction stuff from the photo into his scene. This is great crater shot right here of broken pavement and stuff. And he's incorporating all this stuff into the scenes. Here he's going to talk about composition. This shot specifically, he's showing the directional lines of specific aspects that he created inside this scene to lead the eye around the scene. Now he does talk about drawing. This, to me, is the most fascinating part, is when he's talking about technique. He goes into his tools. He uses a bunch of different sizes pencils. Talks about the hardware, of course, he uses. His roughs are pretty colorful from the standpoint of he sketches out on just regular paper. Then he'll go in with black and blue and red to pull out details. Putting that on a light box, of course, to trace it off and tighten things up. He talks about here, I thought this is cool, picking out the lines. He uses an ordinary 2H mechanical pencil. He says his idea for the initial outline work, providing the accuracy and detail that you need at this stage. And then from there, he kind of shows the different tools for mark making. So the mechanical pencil compared to using the traditional. He uses a traditional pencil, side of the pencil for shading. Plus, it's very helpful for filling in large black areas. You can see he has them in one hand. Now, the difference with me is I have a table next to my desk, but I pretty much have My mechanical pencils, I use a .03, a .05, and a lead holder. And I have those laid out next to my desk to grab at different times. And this I thought was really cool. He shows the pencils. This is from the cover. And then he indicates with a different color what everything is. So for instance, the red is the mechanical pencil, which he uses for fine outlines and precise detail work, right? And then the traditional pencil is in blue, and it's for softer lines. More fluid motion comes with this tool, you know, basically using it, the side of the pencil and such. You get these thicker marks and stuff. Side strokes with the green right in here, same thing, using kind of the side of the pencil here for this type of rendering and such. I think it's pretty cool. You know, basically you look at this, it's like, all right, side of the pencil, chunk in your black areas, using mechanical pencil to pull out thin feathering lines out of the black areas and such. I just wish this wasn't on a spread so you could actually really open it and see it. But he talks about a little figure drawing basics, which is pretty cool. It doesn't get too much into construction, but, you know, it's cool to see this stuff. These, I guarantee, were from photos. That might not have been. These are from photos, I would be willing to bet, though, especially this one with the lighting that he has going down. I love seeing the sketchy stuff like this. Just very cool getting inside the artist's head this way. And see, here we go. We even have, so here he's showing the photo reference. And you can tell it's not traced off. He's looking at he didn't put tracing paper over this. He's looking at this photo reference and then drawing from it. You can see the proportions are different here. The head is cocked back a little farther here than it is on this photo reference. But you can see he's applying this lighting to it, side of the pencil type stuff and whatnot. And then he tightens it up a little bit more, like he said, with his 2H pencil. And this is all pencil work, and then goes in using the side of the pencils and stuff to do the shading and whatnot. Talks about the hands and faces. Those are key. I've always said that. Expressive hands and faces are key. If you can draw really good faces and hands, the rest of the body can almost fall away because, you know, this is the stuff people key in on, for the faces and hands. Now, a little bit about character movement. Got some more examples from books he's done. Talks about costuming. Now he's talking about drawing environments. You can see the photo reference here, and then this drawn here. Just trying to look at key points of where things line up. Yeah, I would hazard a guess that he took this photograph and traced it. Once again, nothing wrong with tracing photos. I mean, look, you need to know the rules of perspective and the rules of drawing. But once you know those rules, this is just a time-saving technique. So he traces this photo, he goes in, he throws this extra, to create depth, this extra signpost here in the foreground, help push some depth. Needless to say, he's got other figures here that he drew in the foreground as well to help with the depth in the scene, setting the scene. You know, this bus, he added the bus. So he still added stuff. Of course, that big special effect right there he added. Same here. Here's this scene. There's the taxi cab here. There it is there. Once again, use some artistic license. What I'd actually like to know is he tracing this off from the standpoint of taking the photograph, putting it down on a light box, maybe putting tracing paper over it and tracing it that way? Is he direct tracing it from the photograph to the Bristol board? Is he doing it in the computer, where you take this photograph into a computer program like Clip Studio or Sketchbook Pro, put another layer over it and trace it off that way, then print it out. So I'm actually curious, and I don't think it says in any of this, how he goes about tracing the photos, because putting this on a light box through Bristol, unless your light box is super, super powerful, you're going to lose a lot of that detail. So I'd like to know that. And of course, imagination, you know, having to create things. This is just talking more about referencing and such. Now he goes back to talk about camera placement, and these are his rough sketches. And of course, you can see the final right here for this one drawing of the thing smashing this guy. He goes into a little bit of inking as well. His inking technique, he talks about his tools for inking. He goes into approaches, the different techniques. I mean, this is so photographic looking. You know, Bryan definitely goes to that photographic look when it comes to what he wants in his black and white artwork. Here he's talking about feathering, hatching, different pen points, and such. And then once again, he takes this piece, which we saw in pencil, and he shows it in ink, and he talks about the different tools he's using for the feathering, the hatching, pen, and the brush. So really breaking it down, which I think is very cool. And I love this rough look inking that he has. Not all perfect and such. I love this stuff. And he talks about color, which I assume, you know, it's more about color, like it even says, approaches to coloring. It's not about, you know, using Photoshop and what buttons and brushes and things like that. This is early work right here. This is a sample page that got him his first commission from Marvel UK. I think he was like 16 when he did that. And he just talks a little bit about working in the business and things. What should go into a portfolio? Look at that, 5 pages. I always tell you guys, you don't need 10, 12, 15, 20 pages in your portfolio. Good 4 to 5 pages is all you need. Getting your foot in the door. So there you have it. I think he does kind of go over the cover, how he created the cover for this book, which is pretty cool. This kind of gets out of the cover because this talks about different stuff. This is cool though to see his rough thumbnail here. Finished pencils for it here and how he stuck to it. His rough drawing right here. Here you can see he's drawing through and then it's cropped and stuff. It's always good to draw through. And this is a little story that he did. Pencils and inks, I just love seeing this stuff. So very cool. I really like to know who these characters are. I'd like to see more of them. And there you go. That is a little flip through Bryan Hitch's Ultimate Comics Studio. I hope you enjoyed this. Please like, subscribe to the channel. Subscriptions are free, so you can see more content like this on books from my library that I will take you through, so maybe you'll go out and buy it. Also, please back my book, First Man, Learning Curve. Link is in the description below. It's on Indiegogo, and I'm working on it daily. Thank you very much. Bye-bye, everybody.
Luke Henry, after kicking Monarch's ass to the depths of space, is back on Earth, and now he's looking to save the world from the Fourth World Foundation. Sure, he had help from Penumbra before, but she's not helping him this time. He's got to face it on his own. He's coming for a villain known as Adonis. He'll do it. You'll be there. Back it now. First Man 2, learning